Hi, everyone. We're going to get started with panel 2. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're really excited about this panel. We're going to hear from some wonderful women working in the grains industry right now, kind of across the sectors of the grains industry. So I will let Tiara, the moderator, I'll let you take it from here. Thank you all.
Hi, everyone. How are you guys doing today? How are you ladies doing today? My name is Tiara Andress, and I am the Academic Program Director for Culinary Arts at Northeastern Technical in Charlotte, South Carolina. I'm a professional chef. My background is in education in the restaurant industry, and I really push my students to look at becoming a chef or working in the industry from a holistic standpoint of view. It's not just about cooking the food, but it's very important to know where your food comes from because it has a story. So I'm gonna let everyone else introduce themselves, and this is the Grains panel. You wanna start, Rachel?
Oh, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Bernier-Green. I am the owner of Laine's Bake Shop. We are an artisan baking company located in Chicago, and we have a social and environmental mission behind our company, which is how I got involved in kind of the sustainable agriculture and grains work.
Don't be shy. Who's next? Introduce yourselves.
My name is Adriana Azcarate-Ferbel, and I'm in Portland, Oregon. My business is Three Sisters Nixtamel. We make tortillas the traditional way with organic corn. And so we're also into sustainability and also respect for the food and the culture. So thank you for having me here.
Hi, my name is Mariela, and I own Comadre Panaderia. I started in Seattle, but I'm currently back in my hometown of San Antonio, Texas. I focus on making baked goods that I grew up eating. I am first generation American to Mexican parents. So we make a lot of pan dulce, but we make it not with white flour. We focus on providing some options with whole grains, with organic and locally sourced ingredients as well. Yeah.
Should I go next?
Yes, you can go.
Okay, so my name is Taddese. I'm the owner of Queen Sheba restaurant. I've been doing Ethiopian restaurant over 15 years. I also the founder and the CEO of Sheba Farms, trying to grow teff grain that I grew up onto in Ethiopia, and that's the main staple grain that we use for over 3,000 years now. So I just want to share that amazing grain. It's called super grain with the rest of the world. And that's it.
Is that everyone? I think so. So I want you ladies, the first question I'm going to ask, and we just agreed to keep this very conversational. As far as your business and what you stand for, how does that relate to your race, your culture, and identity, and what you really want people to take from it? Like, what are some things you want them to learn, that it's just not about the product that they're eating, how important it is for them to know the story behind it? And y'all can feel free.
For me, because I grew up in Ethiopia, I'm from Ethiopia, and also I grew up eating the teff. That time I didn't realize how important that grain was. So when I opened my restaurant, Queen Sheba, most of my food are gluten-free. The only thing that we have gluten in it is the injera bread that we make, because the teff is so expensive here in the United States. So we have to mix it with barley. So And I know teff has the most amazing nutrition, 3 times the fiber, and also gluten-free. So I was thinking, you know, if this is so much demand for it, like sometimes I can't even keep up selling the gluten-free injera, which I charge. For the other bread, I don't charge. But people are still, you know, we still don't get enough of getting the teff. So that's why I was thinking, why not? We are in the United States. We have the technology, the knowledge, everything, especially in California at UC Davis. And this is an agriculture state. So why don't I get, you know, in touch with the food ag department, with the city, whatever, and see how they can help me. So that's how I ended up with UC Davis. You know, so that they decide to actually they jumped on it, and now I'm working with UC Davis research team to be able to grow teff, and we grew it last year for the first time in California. We actually grew teff for food. So now I have 2 farmers that I am partnering with here in California, also in Ethiopia too, just trying to help the farmers so they can produce more with the technology and with the information and knowledge that we have here, and then take it there. So in that way, we have enough teff to be able to sell it, you know, to the, not to the high price, at least to the market price. It shouldn't be just only rich people who can afford teff can buy in America. I want everyone to be able to afford teff in the future without affecting my people in Ethiopia, without making it expensive for the people in Ethiopia. Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Yeah.
Anybody else? Why is it important for consumers to understand the background as it relates to race, culture, and identity?
I feel like my entire business is formed off of people knowing about my culture, and about me constantly putting that up on the front. Growing up, what I did, or growing up, you know, like Mexican sweetbreads or Mexican food was just associated with really cheap ingredients, and it was never really respected in a lot of ways. And it was very important for me to let people know that that is so wrong, and that thinking is so scary for so many cultures. To value our food as cheap is terrible. So I've always been pretty clear about and have been vocal about always putting my culture and my experience as a Mexican American person on the forefront of what I do. And honestly, it's like the response for the most part has been amazing. It has connected me with so many people. It has empowered me. It has enabled me to empower other people. And I've learned so much through taking that approach to running a business, which is still weird to say. Yeah.
I like to piggyback on Mariela's in that also, like, yes, true Mexican food has been seen like has to be cheap and, you know, really not respected. And for me, working with corn has been is a grain that has been violated. It's using for like corn syrup, for gas, for, it's like there is no respect for the spirit of the corn. And for me to work with corn is like going like really getting in touch with the ancestors. And so for me, like it's like corn is a very important grain in the Americas. You know, people call like, oh, this colorful corn is like Indian corn. All corn is Indian, you know? And so it's just that, so that's an important grain. There's more grains in the America than that, but this is an important grain that I'm working with. When I work with ancestral food, it reminds me of where I come from. It reminds me who I am. It reminds me what's my path and not to forget and to share it. And when I share the food with others, we make community. And when we're in community, then we see each other and we respect each other and we have empathy for each other. So I love sharing this culture of the corn with other people. And so that's kind of what is important. We even have a saying in Mexico, say, sin maíz no hay país. Without corn, there is no country. So it's like, it's such an important part of our culture. And in really, the industrialized food have really kind of destroyed the culture of corn because they make this industrialized flour. And so, so that's kind of an issue, and we can talk more about it, but I'll give space to Rachel now. Thank you.
I think you guys covered that part wonderfully, so I'll chime in later.
Okay, so I want y'all to talk about some barriers that you faced working in the grain industry, how that has affected you. Like, how does marketing play into that? How does race play into it? You all talk so lovely about why it's important for people to know about your guys' culture as it relates to your business. So I want you to speak on like some barriers and like how marketing and industrialization and colonization has played into that.
I mean, for me, because TEF, people still don't know what TEF is. Do you see what I mean? So it is harder, as even though the demand is as high as right now for TEF, it has never been marketed. Probably the only people who know in America about TEF, even in most world, is only those people who are allergic to gluten. Because when you are allergic to gluten, you can't eat wheat. Well, you know, you're going to Google what is the gluten-free grain available for me. So for that reason, TEF would come up, with the gluten-free. So that's why the past, especially, I would say 10, 15 years, the demand of TEF going up. That's why even Ethiopian government, they can't really export it because they don't want the same thing happening like quinoa. So when it was like superfood quinoa here, it got so expensive for the people who were depending on that quinoa. So our government is like, no, we're not until we figure out how to maximize growing TEF, because the whole nation in Ethiopia, our best diet is TEF, especially when it comes to bread. So that's why I came up with here, if we help you from here, California, bring my knowledge, my technology that I lived here in California, if I do that, and then I don't touch the farmers' TEF, so I had to negotiate with the people in Ethiopia to be able to actually grow it without affecting the farmers. In fact, helping the farmers. So instead of getting, let's say in 1 acre, they can get 1 ton, why not get 2-3 tons? Using the technology and the information that we have here. We're still farming in Ethiopia in, ancient time. So why not bring that farming into the 21st century? So that's why I'm working on right now with the UC Davis, with Ethiopian government here, see how we can maximize the productivity of TEF. And also TEF is like, we eat it like a family style. So it has that culture side to it. It's not like, any other bread, you can just buy it from the shop and just, make it food. It actually, you have to ferment it for 2-3 days. The process of making injera with TEF is not just something like you're just going to make bread. It has the whole process into it. You have to put your love, your spirit into it. It's not like you just throw it in the oil and cook it. So I think, that would give, the value of food. Like here in Western, civilization, we are so far away from food. That's why even though we have everything, we're still sick when it comes to food. Our stomach is sick. Our mental health is sick. So I believe I bring a unique grain that been eating for thousands of years as a diet, and it's still working and it's good for human beings. So I'm just excited about the whole adventure I'm in, that I'm not only just benefiting myself growing it, benefiting here for the people, and also in Ethiopia, the farmers, for their economy. So I think it's just an amazing project we are in. And you know, the result is going to be amazing. So I'm just looking forward to it.
So
Yeah.
I'll jump in a little bit. So I think specifically as a person of color in grains, kind of some of the barriers that I've run into, I think fall into really three categories. The first being access, the second assumptions, and then knowledge. So we're based on the south, well, we were for a long time based on the south side of Chicago, and now we're on the west side of Chicago. Every location that we've produced in has been in an under-resourced neighborhood, and often they're food deserts. So even when I find a farmer who is producing regeneratively grown grains that I want to source, often the distributors don't actually come to where I'm located. And when they do, they might only come to my location once a week versus other locations, they come, 5 or 6 times a week. And so that has been a bit of an obstacle. And then I think one of the other big pieces has been knowledge, because as a couple of the panelists have alluded to, people are so used to cheap commodity driven food that people don't really understand the value of using whole foods. And so there's some education when it comes to our consumers and even the retailers that we sell our products into, because people don't necessarily see that value. They're just like, oh, well, I'm used to paying, 50 cents for this. Why does it cost $2? And so explaining why this is important, not just to our health, but also to the environment, to our entire ecosystem, has been kind of an unexpected labor of love added, onto the production of the food that I didn't expect coming into it. And then I think the last piece for me has just been some of the assumptions that I run into, especially when I start making connections with the farmers or other people in the grains ecosystem, particularly because we have a social mission to our company. And we do a lot of work with reentering citizens and other people that have been kind of cast off by society. And so that has been in some ways stigmatizing and polarizing for some people. And so that's kind of added an additional layer of interest to forming the relationships we need to get the grains that we're trying to incorporate in our products.
My experience with grain, I started getting interested and learning about grains through baking sourdough. And I knew from the very beginning, I've been baking for like 12 years. Like I'm deep in this. And like, I knew from the very beginning that I wanted to make healthy-ish food, nourishing food for people. That's always meant a lot to me. Like, my parents worked all the time, and at a certain age, we just had to fend for ourselves. And we ate so much pizza, so much Taco Bell, so much trash. My grandma died from diabetes. Like I know the impact of what bad food does to our bodies. So that's why I got interested in grains. And like first dabbling in it, it was like dominated by like white dudes and like showing their like skills when they like show the crumb shot with the sourdough. And it was a very like bro mentality. And so I knew I wanted to shake that up and make space for other people, including myself. And it just started learning more about grain and reaching out directly to farmers, especially because so many labor laws in Texas were so bad. We were all just getting treated like crap in kitchens. I knew the people out there growing our food were getting treated like crap. So that was another reason why I wanted to get involved with grain, is to empower the people that are caring for this land and caring about the food that they are making for people. And it was actually really easy in Seattle. They've got, there's that whole like foodie culture there. And the Pacific Northwest grows some beautiful things. I mean, beautiful grain up there, beautiful wheat. They grow teff up there too. And just beautiful, beautiful things are grown there. So it was pretty easy to connect with farmers to be able to use their ingredients in what I was baking. Being back in Texas, it has been harder. Not only am I restarting my business here, but that mentality just isn't there as much. And it's been hard, but I know it's really, really important. It's just not as accessible here, but I know the qualities here. I know doing it is going to empower so many people. So I think it's just putting the energy behind it, and we can make some big changes to the grain industry here.
Thank you everyone for what you share. And I have a lot of things in common, like access to corn. The Northwest is not a corn growing place. So trying to access organic corn, local corn, forget it, but organic corn. Organic corn in the United States is grown for animal feed, not for human consumption. So I had to be looking and looking. I called hundreds of different farmers. And what I had difficulty with is the farmers would say, yeah, I can sell you with a truck full. Well, I'm a small business just beginning. I can't get a truck full. So that's a difficulty on the access. And then also I will finally find someone that will get me organic corn. And sometimes they'll bring me the corn all broken. To make tortillas, you need the whole kernel, good quality. And so I would say, no, I can't use that. And I'm like, well, you're too small for me to really pay attention to what corn I'm selling to you. So it has been hard. And, I've been doing this for a while. So I got a farmer in New Mexico that grows blue corn, and he connected me to farmers in Mexico, in the north of Mexico. And now I'm even connected with some in Oaxaca and Mariela area on the center of Mexico. So it's just really cool that it's beginning to be more common. And now that people are asking for tortillas made the traditional way, so the access is getting bigger. The other thing is competing with the industrialized flour tortillas. To make tortillas the traditional way is not that simple. You have to cook the corn in limestone, soak it overnight, rinse it, pull it out, grind a stone mill. It's a wet milling, and in many places still do it in a stone called metate by hand, but places like me, we use electric steel stone, like a stone from the volcano stones that are sharpened for these, and it's with water, and it's a wet dough. It's never a flour, it's a wet dough. So people hear like, oh, you already mixed it? No, we didn't mix it. That's how it comes out. It's not a flour that I just open up the bag, put water and mix it. It's not. That's the industrialized thing. So I think so it's competing with the industrialized on price is incredibly difficult, just like Rachel was talking about that. And then the other thing that has been not easy and a challenge for me is cultural appropriation. It's a problem. And what is this a problem? Because the people that bring the attention to the food, like a discovery, and then they're like, oh, they're doing this, but they're not focusing, they never look at the culture with the respect where they're bringing it from. So I'm happy for people to do it, but give respect and knowledge to the people that food come from, that we've been eating it forever. That's what I call like Columbusing. It's like Columbusing. They just discover the food, just like the Indian corn. This is maybe I go a little out there, but we were not Indians. They thought they were going to Indians. And it's like if I say, hey, your name is Juan, and they're like, no, my name is Lucas. oh, I'll call you Juan, you know, like here, oh, you're Indians. No, we're not Indians. Well, we'll call you Indians anyways, you know, that's kind of like, you know, how I see it. So that's kind of the thing. Like, I want people to bring respect to like the indigenous food traditions, and that's important for me. And by doing this, bringing that respect to the way we're making the tortillas, that is huge for me to bring that back. And one last thing is, as women, we get difficulties because, you know, it's a patriarchal society where we live in, and you're not as valuable, or, you know, you're not, I want to say the word, you're not like acknowledged as you're as good as men are. Also, with an accent that I have, it makes me even like I'm not as smart as others. And I'm getting older. I'm getting to my 50s soon, and my business partner is around 55. And sometimes, like, I see how they diminish her, like they don't even want to, like they ignore her, like if she wasn't even present. So those are the things that I encounter in difficulties.
I'd like to just piggyback on one of the things you said. So I think we talked a lot about as women of color, but as women specifically, I've actually had to resort to, my husband used to work in the business with me, and I have his email address. And with some of our suppliers, I only engage with them pretending to be him, because the tone of respect and the conversations that are had are entirely different than when I show up. And we also look very different. And so there's a level of privilege afforded to him that I don't get. And after a certain time, I realized with some people, that's not a battle that I have the emotional capacity to fight all the time. And so I just pretend to be him, because that's a very real challenge.
And the other challenge I may add also, getting access to money. Like for me, even though I have the vision, I have all the what we want to do, but without the money access, we can't progress as fast as we should progress, because it's a new grain, it's a food, mm, and making people believe that this is worth investing until they see, because they don't know what TEF is. So it's just so hard getting that money access, even though for sure that that is worthwhile even for people investing. So it's just so hard convincing people what you're trying to do, especially when it comes to food. People are so far away from food. As soon as you even mention it to them, oh, what you're eating is not good for you, they're like, oh, leave me alone, let me eat and enjoy my food. And then as soon as we get sick, and they're like, oh, how do I change now? So we're living in that type of society. Where I came from is the other way around. You live for your food practically, and then everything else comes secondary and third. So we're here especially in the United States where we're living, food is not as valuable as the money we're making, or the work we're doing, or other things we're doing. So, we have to come back to that. That's why, for me, being from Ethiopia, every time I go to Ethiopia, the respect of the food is just beyond. It's like you can't even get up from your food while you're eating. That would show us a disrespect for the food. So I came from that culture where we really value and respect food. What else here? It's like food we eating just to survive, to live. But eventually we chase money, but we get sick and we lose that money for hospitals and, healthcare. So I think what we're living in right now, especially with this COVID stuff going on, I think is a different mindset is opening up. So I think us being, especially women, and being in this grain in food, because women are we are the nourishing, we raise the men too. So I think us being into this, it will give us a huge platform and advantage to be able to inform and educate people the importance of food, regardless. So I think with TEF and with all this grant that they've been putting on the side, I think we can bring it alive eventually with our hard work, with our voice, and with what we're doing right now. It's not going to be easy, but it's tough, but it's going to be worth it for me. Yeah.
Y'all, this is incredible. Like, I hear access, education. I know, Rachel, I think somebody mentioned food deserts. For people who don't know what a food desert is, it's basically a location, usually like in a small town or rural area, who don't have access to like fresh produce. But you got access to fast food restaurants and an assortment of things that are not really healthy. So that's basically what a food desert is. So I think I know for a fact, I want to ask you guys, I hear nutrition and like whole health and just being aware is a common core ethic for everyone. So like, how do y'all feel about people cutting grains out of their diet? Because we live in this world now that what people like fantasize, like these fad diet trends, like keto, you need to cut grains out. Well, honey, all grains ain't bad for you. You need to have a balanced diet. That's what you need in your life. So I want y'all to speak to like how grains is portrayed to like health and specifically in the United States, where you're told to like cut it out. You should eat an all meat diet, or Lord forbid you tell anybody to eat grains and vegetables. It's the end of it. So if you'll just speak to that.
Yeah, so I think a lot of that is driven by there's so much big money in food that I don't think a lot of people realize that like, a lot of these dietary trends and advice are not actually coming initially from nutritionists, that a lot of that is a financially driven decision. But also people are so disconnected from their food that it's really easy to misinform them. When people don't realize that there's, different types of grain or the nutrients that are in, like if you actually have like a whole grain versus you have something that's completely stripped and bleached and sitting on a shelf, for 2 years, that those are not the same thing at all. But people just have no idea. And the farmers who are growing these grains and the people that are using them often don't have the same financial reach to educate consumers that kind of like Adriana, like the big corn lobby or whoever is coming up with these, nutrition advice and kind of passing them along to people.
Anybody else?
If I add to that, American diet, everything is bread, bleached wheat, the pizza, the pasta. I mean, the breaded chicken, the breaded fish. I mean, everything is all wheat and wheat and wheat. Like she was saying, it was it was promoted. Now people are getting sick from eating grain is not bad. Every culture in this world has certain kind of grain in their diet. So from the time we were created. So it's not the grain is the problem. It's like she was saying, what they push, especially when it comes to wheat, the bleached flour, the worst flour because it's cheap, is pushing into our American diet. Everything. That's why a lot of people are sick. Their stomach is sick. Most people have a stomach sensitive right now. And that came from all this grain, garbage grain that been sold to them, especially our kids. Eating all that carbs is not carb is bad. It's what kind of carb you eating is what is bad. But now people start figuring it out. Oh, now I can't eat wheat because it's bleached. Oh, I can't eat wheat because it's gluten. So it's changing in a way. Even society are waking up to grain, because without grain, it's really human being. That's part of our diet. It's like protein is part of our diet. Fiber is part of our, all that comes from grain. So I think it's changing eventually, whether we like it or not, especially in the United States. It will change how we eat food,
Yeah, and I think Mariela made a great point earlier when you were saying that like your food, like even though they're desserts, that they are healthier or nourishing. And I think that that's messaging that I've struggled with, because we do primarily make desserts and pastries. However, our food is deeply satiating, it is nourishing. And I think that we have kind of like this disconnect where we have good foods and bad foods with no qualifiers. And so people assume just because something has grains or just because something is a dessert that it doesn't have any nutritional value. And I think that that's kind of a false trade-off that we don't necessarily have to make.
Yeah, I'm like, y'all are so right. And just listening to y'all speak like re-energizes me, and it's so great because so much of what we know is just connected to people that have a lot of wealth, and ways that they can continue to hold their wealth, make more wealth at the expense of so many other people's health. And I think we're all pretty into decolonizing ourselves, our practices, our food system. And through educating myself about that, I've learned just like, I love wheat. I love wheat. I love it. But that's also led me to start learning about amaranth and quinoa and corn. And it's like, once you get past just the like wheat in your face, you start seeing, holy crap, there's so many beneficial, tasty, diverse grains that should just be accessible to everyone. Why aren't we using these things? Like, they are amazing. Why aren't we using more grains? I'm so confused as to why people are hating on grains so much. But yeah, it is tied to marketing, diet fads, the way, it's so tied to, especially as women, like, you got to look this way, you got to be able to do this thing at that age, and your skin has got to have collagen and blah, blah, blah. And so much marketing. I feel like we're so brainwashed. So I'm really glad we're doing this to help push some of the brainwashing out of us.
I agree with all of you, of course, and I love amaranth. That was grain of the gods that Spanish prohibited in Mexico. But and quinoa is great, and the Quinopodium family is not just there's so many Quinopodia families, which is really incredible. Actually, in Mexico, we eat the plant with the flowers before they're the grain, Wausontle, and that's like, we eat the flowers, and it's a Quinopodium family. And it's incredible, the variety of grain. It's not just like the grain, but it has flowers. You can eat all these other things on the grain. But I wanted to bring something about, I think with all the pesticide uses and the genetic modify of the foods have caused a lot of allergies, and like everyone says, like they're eating like not real grain food, that it's really healthy and the right grains. That's why people are going back to more ancient grains, because of all the modification. And so I think that's an issue, that people are like, well, I'm allergic to corn, I'm allergic to wheat, I'm allergic to that, but it's because they have not been eating the right grain. And so I think that's one issue. Like, I have now naturopathic doctors tell the patients to eat only my tortillas. They couldn't eat any corn, but now they can digest only my tortillas. So I have people with cancer, with GI issues, coming in and eating what is made in the traditional way. So that's that's different. And also the wheat and like corn and like quinoa, and there is many varieties of them, and they have different nutrients on them too. There is yellow corn, there are white corn, blue corn, red corns, pink corns, green corns, and they're all are different, and they have different nutrients and different properties. And the same thing, I can't speak for other grains, but I love it. It's not, it's not that simple. Like teff, you have to ferment teff. Like, they do this whole process. I tried one time. I was a failure for me. You know, I couldn't do it. It's not easy. You know, it has so much culture and knowledge. And so I think like that's what we lose when we go into an extreme way. And then, you know, so it's complicated. And, you know, in the past, people, you eat like whole grain, and then the revolution came of whatever it is, and they changed it to white bread, and the rich people were eating white bread, and then that's the cheap one. And now, you know, so it's complicated. It's not that simple. So we can't just simplify eat grain or not eat grain. It's like, it's more complicated. And then I also think like we could not feed ourselves of only meat. One, we're humans, we can eat so many different things. We're not like, you know, if you're this animal like koalas that can eat just these leaves, we're not like that. We're animals that can eat so many things. We're so lucky. So for God's sakes, enjoy it, and but eat the right thing. Get, you know, the right grain. So it's more complicated. We can't just have cows, like huge amount of cows, and just eat cows. That's bad for the environment, bad for, you know, like, so yes, it's very political, it is complicated. So I think let's enjoy what we can eat and choose the right food, you know, like good grains. Let's get that culture of the good food, the ancient, the what brings us with, you know, connects us with our ancestors.
Yeah, I agree with all that, honestly, but we have this, now we have that platform to change all that. I mean, it's fight against all these big people with the money, but they're getting sick themselves too. So eventually, human being, we're gonna come back to our food, because that's what we are. You know, we were created to eat food and live life, but we brought a lot of things ourselves. We brought money, we brought competition, we brought this and that. Now our food got lost in there, and instead of investing their money into organic food, they invest money into GMO and other food where they can get the same results investing in a better food. So I think for us coming up in a different timing, we can change all that. And you know, because right now United States, as you know, I mean, the whole, we don't even have any land left. It's all chemicalized. Do you see what I mean? The only thing a little bit left as a land is even California a little bit. So because of what human being did, we destroyed our earth, we destroyed our soil, even though we have enough land to live and, you know, make our food and share with everybody else, every culture sharing food. So I think eventually as a human being, whether we like it or not, we're gonna come to that, come back to our core, which is our food, you know. So us being the voice of this grain, especially grain, like I was saying, is the most important part of our diet as a human being. And eating the best grain for us, for our body, for our organ. We're not eating for just our mouth and for the taste. We actually, every single nutrition came from that earth, goes into each our organ, so it can function accordingly. So with us saying no, we, our mouth is better as long as it tastes good, you know, it goes in there and do okay. So I think we forgot about our organs, you know, and focusing on our taste. So I think for us being in this and trying to educate people in general, let's get back to our food. Let's get back to, once we get back to our food, then family comes in. Like in Ethiopia, when we eat, it's a family thing. You can't eat by yourself. It's a culture thing. Food is like, even you have to wait somebody to come into your house to eat. So it's not an individual thing where you're eating on the street, or you have to actually respect the food when you eat. You don't eat by yourself, you eat with your family. So here, we don't even know what time we eat. We eat as we go, we eat fast food. So I think, you know, we know eventually all this is not going to be a beneficial for human being, and we got to go back to how our ancestors used to eat. So I think I'm just so happy to be part of this. Even if it's a small change, we have to make change when it comes to food. and connect to our ancestors, other ancestors from Africa, from Mexico, from Asia. Why not? You know, why not reach ourselves to them? Because they know they've been growing that for thousands of years, you know. So that's what I'm doing, reaching out to my people in Ethiopia. Help them, help us.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we have some questions. Can everybody hear me good? Um, Adriana, what types of corn would you like to see grown?
Land race. Still in Mexico, there is like 55 types of land race, but we can't access to them. Why? So I would like to have more access to them. Why we can't access to them? United States has, those a lot of gives money to the farmers. How's that called? I just the name flew like they give money to the farmers here, so the corn here in United States is super cheap. I would like to keep growing land-raised corns in Mexico and here also. There's a lot of corn in here. We're actually working with a farmer right now growing like 5 different types of corns. There's some greens, some reds, some yellows, some whites. So I really would like to see a variety. Why do we need a variety? We want to work with corns that feed back the land. Some corns actually secrete certain secrete like something that actually feeds the microflora of the earth, so it doesn't deplete it. So we need to make sure that we learn to grow those corns that actually feed back, maybe even not a monoculture but a multiculture, like putting different plants together because they support each other. I think it's healthier for the earth. It's harder to harvest, but it's healthier for all of us, also for our own diet. Also, I would like, I think someone was asking a question mostly about teff, but I will answer also a little bit about corn. The indigenous people in Mexico, many times, they have worked with corn for thousands of years, passed like from generation to generation. And right now, there is a corn that has these little finger legs and absorbs nitrogen from the air. And that's in Oaxaca. And sometimes scientists go and study that and they don't acknowledge that. So yes, there is an issue on making sure that the indigenous people get their acknowledged, and they get the. It's not like we should not patent food, so I'm not into that, but to be able to give them access to grow what they're doing, and they want the ones that earn. So I answered a couple of questions. Is that enough? Is that answer the question?
You did. So someone asks, are there any models for ensuring benefit monetary intellectual property rights for the indigenous communities with Ethiopian communities and teff when facing a globalizing industrial agriculture market pressure? So yes, you did answer that.
Sion should be answering that too, no?
Yeah, she should.
Sorry, what was the question again?
Okay, so I'm going to repeat it. So are there any models for ensuring benefit monetary intellectual property rights for indigenous communities with Ethiopian? Oh my, what happened to my question?
Yeah, I get it. But,
Okay.
that is why, like with the, in Europe, the Netherlands country, they try to patent teff. So the teff, the government, the Ethiopian government had to fight them for few years, just to, how, we're living in that kind of society right now. But right now it's recognized as Ethiopian grain. So when I'm doing this, I am very careful how I am bringing my ancestors' teff grain into United States, so it doesn't get lost into that bureaucracy where they're trying to make money off it, they're trying to water it down and all that. That's why I created like a win-win situation where we're gonna partner with farmers here, organic farmers in the United States, as well as partner with UC Davis, and as well as partner with the agriculture in Ethiopia. So all we doing is for our farmers, giving them the access, the technology, the information, the irrigation system that they need, make it easy for them so they can grow it, like I was saying, produce it more, 5-6 times more without using GMO or, just organically. So in that way, if they do that, we can bring it here in the United States. So I'm working right now trying to get some land to create a processing and manufacturing and training center so we can bring it and package it, even have like a business where we can sell gluten-free bread with teff. In that way, we create a win-win situation for everybody. So the people in the United States, at least they're getting the teff grain, a healthy grain, and the people in Ethiopia, at least they have the means of making money through grain. It benefits them, it benefits the family. So we're trying to create a win-win situation for everybody. And for the people, of course, they're getting teff, which is the best grain for you, for your health, and so we're trying to create a win-win situation. Even though it's a grain, we still have to respect it in a way. We're gonna be eating it into, health.
I'd like to add to, because I think a couple people, I know Adriana alluded to this earlier, that that maybe the answer is not like an intellectual property protections or traditional means like that. That if we're really pushing for more equity in the food system, then we might need to reevaluate how we go about making sure that the communities that are producing foods are, adequately compensated for them. And so in my mind, we might need to shift away from using traditional legal measures to protect that, and instead move to like cooperative growing. So if we have indigenous or other cultures they have the knowledge, they're growing the grains, then instead of moving to mass produced commodity farms, that they have a cooperatively owned farm. So all the people working on the farm are actually participating in the wealth that is created from the farm. I think that we need to get a little bit more creative in how we make sure that things are equitable. And that answer might require us looking at things at least for Americans, in a significantly different way. I don't think that there is a path that's kind of like the traditional MBA answer that gets us to the equity that we need in the food system.
Okay, so we have another question. To everyone, thank you so much for all you do. As a baker, one thing I think about is how to pay farmers what they deserve for their grain and still make our food accessible to our community. How do you address this in your business?
So this is like my favorite thing. So my background is actually in finance, accounting, and engineering. And so operations and anything related to like systems and money was like my jam before I came into baking. And so my thing is this: there are 3 outputs in any food product. So we have the ingredients, we have the labor, and then we have kind of whatever system we're using to produce the process. My perspective is I'm not willing to compromise on paying people less than a living wage or compromise on the quality of the ingredients. So therefore, it really only leaves us one area to play with, and that's how efficiently we can produce things without losing quality. And so I think that that's the challenge for us as bakers. And so often for us, that means we're repurposing tools, or we'll partner with like an engineering school to have someone 3D print a tool that we can use to like do something faster than we did before. But I think we have to get creative on that end of the spectrum unless we're willing to compromise on the other two. But the other piece of that is people have an unrealistic expectation of what food should cost. And so I don't think the answer is necessarily try to get as cheap as what people are used to. I do think we have to radically shift what people are used to paying for food, because we cannot pay the people producing like the raw ingredients, the people making the food, the people delivering it. That whole ecosystem is not sustainable if we're trying to meet the price point of commodity driven food.
Thank you, Rachel.
You are so right. Like, I am very small. I've never owned a brick and mortar. I always work out of commissaries. I sell for the most part direct to customer. I have tried to take out a lot of middle action so that ingredients are always the best thing that I can get my hands on, and those people are getting the money that they deserve for those ingredients. And when I do hire people, at this point, I can only afford to hire one person part-time that they get paid what they deserve to live. And that is so important. And honestly, I work 60 to 70 hours a week. I don't know, I'm so small. I don't know how to grow in a sustainable way. I don't have access to capital. I don't really have access to investors. Space is so hard to come by and it's expensive. So sometimes I feel like I just don't know. I don't know how we move forward. I know there is a way, and I know it's going to take a lot of work, and I know it's probably going to be the youth, and they're going to help us break out of this system that we've just been going in circles continuously, and it's not healthy. It's not sustainable. But yeah, educating the public or the customer base as to what food really costs. I am always complaining. Whenever I get to do a pop-up, like a safe pop-up, people will be like, how are you? I'll be like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. You know why? Because I have to work this much to make this food. I am always letting people know how much work goes into what I'm doing, because I think they need to hear that. People need to know the reality of what this industry requires and takes from people, and the sacrifice that it takes to make responsible food. So not keeping quiet and letting people know how tired you are, how swollen your feet are. You've been up since midnight. I think educating and letting people know and not being quiet, and absolutely pricing your items for what they actually cost. I'm not selling a dollar concha. I'm not doing that. That's not sustainable.
And not apologizing for it.
Yeah. No one should have to charge a competitive price, It's
no,
not.
Walmart, they don't apologize for nothing that's priced in there. You're either gonna get it or you're not. So I know for a fact you shouldn't be apologizing for your prices. So we have another question. I'm looking at the time. Do we have until 3 or 3:30?
I think 3:20.
3:20? Okay. So we have more questions. Another question: what are some ways to reframe the discussion around bad foods? I'll start this one off right here because that's all in my lane. As a chef, as an educator, I try not to get severely annoyed when people try to convince me of what's bad. Well, I think we have to, it's not even a thought. You have to reshape whatever food you're talking about and look at it, how it's prepared and how it's grown. Yes. Should you eat fried food every day? No. It's not good for you. You have to look at your diet as a whole, or how you were raised eating, or the culture, or the region, or whatever you like to cook. You have to look at it from a proportion standpoint and a balance standpoint. You shouldn't deprive yourself of anything you like, but you also got to pay attention to your body and what diseases run in your family, what are you more prone to. But I think it comes down to bad food. It just comes down to preparation and knowing more about what you're eating and why you're eating it. For an example, I'm from the South. I'm from Mississippi. I see people have told me all the time, oh man, I bet you eat fried everything. I don't, but I'm not ashamed that we can fry good food. Do you see what I'm saying? So they people try to give you a backhand comment, but make it a comment, but it's really just backhand and rude. So I think changing the narrative to be proud of how you were raised and what you were raised on eating, but also know the nutrition, sound education stem from, like how it breaks down in your body and how it affects you. That's just my point of view.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, we have an incredibly toxic relationship with food. Like the desire to label things as this is inherently bad or that's inherently good. Like food is not a value judgment, and it should never be. And we need to, I think, remind people that your body generally tells you what it needs. If you're listening to it, you know what's nourishing, to yourself. And it doesn't need to be what someone else, has said, these are the 1, 2, 3 rules that everyone needs to follow, because all of our bodies are different. But I think we just need to take a lot of the judgment out of food, eat things that nourish you and make you feel good. And it doesn't have to be that much more complicated, I don't think.
Anybody else?
Yeah, especially in the United States, honestly, we have no excuses not to eat healthy food, because we have so much food in the US. We're actually throwing food. Do you see what I mean? So for me, I think food is like I always say, it's the essential part of human being. We can eat in a moderation. I eat still fried food, but I'm not gonna be eating some breaded fried food every day. Do you see what I mean? So I eat my vegetable every day. I make sure I'm eating 75% of my fruit and vegetable, which we have enough choices. This is America. We just have to pick and choose what we're putting in our body, and our body communicates with us. When we're not eating good food, obviously we're not gonna feel good. We're not gonna think good. We're not gonna, you know what I mean? So our mental health comes from that. Our physical health comes from that. So for us not to recognize as a human being especially in a civilized society where we're living at, the education is there, the Google is there. We have no excuse except denial and say, I don't care, I'm just going to eat anyway. And then when I get sick, I'll think about it. So I think, moderation to me, it's not about I'm always on a diet or I'm always eating vegan or vegetarian. I eat everything. That I am very moderate and I'm very picky and choosy what I put in my body. Sometimes I'll say, what the hell, I'll just eat whatever. But that would be maybe once a month. So in that way, I feel good. Honestly, I mean, at my age, I've never been to the doctor except for checkup or have kids. I don't feel I have the energy. I'm 46 years old. I get up in the morning. I do work that 20-year-olds don't do. My mental health is as clear as anything. I'm still a human being. I'm just saying I really give it that my ancestor came up with that food, and I am so in tune into that. You see what I mean? For every single thing what they came up with, the garlic, the ginger, the turmeric, the cinnamon, the cardamom, the herbs, and the spices that was given it to us from our ancestor. But because of the money, we kind of forgot about it and we are far away from it. Now we're trying to get back to it. And I think eventually, whether we like it or not, we're going to go back to that as a human being, as a society. That's all I can say.
We have another question. This is for Mariela. What are the challenges there have been in establishing a market for using local grains and produce in Texas? Also thinking about, I don't want to butcher this name, Amartha and quinoa. You're on mute.
Let me read that real fast.
Did you hear me?
Yeah, I heard it. It was great.
Okay.
What are the challenges? It has been hard. I hate using words like market and business. Oh, it's so weird. Like I don't want to say I market to a Latinx customer base, but I mean that's the food I'm making. I'm making, you know, conchas and bolillos and masa madre. Like these, you know, the things that I'm making are, you know, the Latinx or Chicanx or Mexican American community is going to relate to them. And in Texas, they're not really used to caring about having a whole grain in their sweetbread, and it's been hard. Luckily, there is Barton Springs Mills in Dripping Springs outside of Austin, which isn't too far from me. I sell to San Antonio and Austin. So thankfully they've made it easy and they've made it interesting because they also carry or they also source Sonora and Yecoro Roja from farmers, which are two grains that were cultivated in northern Mexico. So I think doing things like that, like making the choice to use a grain that is connected to my heritage, has made it more interesting for people in Texas. I also just like push it through social media. I just try to be vocal about the delicious flavor that whole grains bring to what I'm making, some health benefits, how they fill you up. I try and pass on my excitement to people. It hasn't been easy. Definitely a learning curve coming back to Texas because I left Texas 5 years ago because I was like, it's like I can't get the things that I want here. I need a break from such a conservative environment. These people aren't going to like what I'm doing. So I left. But now I'm back because I feel stronger, more educated, and I feel like I can go after resources a lot better. So I think slowly we're making some changes. And that's just through working with like-minded people and vocalizing my excitement for what I believe in.
And for me, I'm still at the, trying to build the system because like I was saying, TEF it's not an easy grain to grow to because the soil needs a lot of nutrition. So growing it here is going to be tough. So I'm trying to create a system that works connecting Ethiopia to California. In that way, we kind of trading that a lot that not problem.
I guess science connection is not, it kind of.
Sorry, guys. Did I get disconnected? Can you hear me now?
A little bit, but I can hear you now.
Okay. So what I was saying, I'm trying to create that system so TEF is not only growing in Ethiopia right now. Actually, Idaho is growing it. Other few states are growing it right now. Israel is growing it. Australia, South Africa. But I want California to be the main grower and distributor to the rest of the world because of UC Davis, and also California as an agricultural state. So they can give us a lot of knowledge and information technology to send it to Africa, Ethiopia. So grow the teff there.
I think
French bread or even tortilla, we can mix it with teff. So any grain at all that uses, we can mix it with teff. That would give it extra boosted up, even when we're not allergic to gluten. Do you see what I mean? So we can revolutionize how people see grain and sell it in all supermarket, Whole Food. Right now in Whole Food in Washington, D.C., you have to line up early in the morning to get teff bread. That is how much the demand is, but we don't have enough supply. See, that's what I'm trying to work on. How to get enough supply so it's cheaper teff for everybody else, not only for people who can afford. So that's what I'm working on, and finger crossed everything is working out that way. And I'm getting a lot of support from different, from UC Davis, from businesses here in California. So I'm very hopeful that hopefully within a few years we will revolutionize how people eat, especially grain. That's what I'm hoping.
anyone else? So I think the last thing that I'm going to ask everyone is a question on here. Let me see if I found the question. It was a question about grain. Specifically, like, what would you like everyone to take away from you guys' discussion on grains, and any specific grain, like we know teff, you would like to highlight? Would you guys like to leave anyone with anything specifically so they can stick with it about grains?
I would say just pay attention. Pay attention, honestly, be cautious. Pay attention to what to eat, what to put into your body, especially grain. That the grain gives us the fiber, the nutrition, and all that stuff that our body needs. So we really, really, really have to pay attention. If we pay even extra $1, $2, it's worth it, because it's our health, it's how we feel. It's what is going to make us feel. It's going to go in there, digest. So when our stomach is digesting it and it's not filling it, so guess what? We're not gonna feel good too. So it's really, really important, honestly, more than anything else, to pay attention to our food, especially our grain, because that is part of our diet. And we have so many options, so many. God gave us so many grains, different good grains, that we don't have to be fixed on some wheat, bleached wheat flour. Even there are so many good wheat, whole wheat, that we can use. Even when we're eating wheat, we still can pay attention to what kind of wheat we're eating. So if it's 50 cents, $1 extra, it's worth it to me. So, and I believe grain is not bad for our diet, as long as we don't overdo it. So we got to eat it in a moderation. So I think that's all I can say too when it comes to grain and in general food. Pay attention into what to eat.
Some things that I'd like to say about grain is look and research into whose land you're occupying, and see what grains or ingredients they worked with on that land, and then research and try and get some of that, or try and source from people, or try and put your resources, your money, your connections that you have to like empower them, and yeah, their like grain experience or the changes and the progress that they're trying to do to like the grain economy. You know, wheat's around me here in Texas, and you know, I started learning that, you know, amaranth is just like growing all over here. You know, sometimes I see it growing in people's gardens when I walk by, when I'm walking my dog in the neighborhood. So it's just like keeping your eyes open for what's growing, I think is a good thing and a good way to progress with grain.
I love all grains, you know, but since I'm working with corn, corn is very flexible. You can do a lot of things, you know. When you do hominy grit, you can do hominy grits. Like you make drinks with it, like we call atole. You can make tortillas. You can make sopes, gorditas, pupusas, masa balls in soups. You can be creative. Don't just think of tortilla, corn tortilla. That's it. Corn is, you can use it in so many ways. It's incredible. We drink it, we eat it, you know. So I just don't limit yourself to that. It's just corn, it's just for tortillas, or you know, sugar for the drinks that they make. But you know, remember, corn has so much flexibility. Corn and humans have worked together for thousands of years, from a little grass that the human began to grab, and so it's a relationship. It's a relationship, human corn. So just remember that when you're eating your grains, remember it's a relationship that we have built from ancestors, all different type of grains. That's awesome. So when you have the positivity and think of that, it's going to be healthier for you. When you have positive thinking, your food has positive, you know, it's good in your for your health. So remember that.
Thank you. So I think in closing, I want to say that I imagine that most people on this call, that we probably all think we need to do things very differently as far as sustainability for grains in the future. But my takeaway I'd like to leave people with is that that sustainability also includes more equity in this space. And that means more access. And it also means compensating the entire supply chain fairly, and that we might need to look at things radically different to accomplish that. To one of the points that a couple people alluded to of how hard it is to scale as a small business, I think a lot of collective efforts are necessary. I know that I wouldn't have gotten to where I am now if I wasn't working in cooperation with a lot of other small businesses so that we could get our heads above water. But also I know there was one question that I saw earlier about like legal structure. One of the things that we're doing is we're an LLC now, but I'm selling the company to my employees in what's called a stock option buyout, employee stock ownership program, so that they actually get to benefit as the company grows. And I think that creative things like that are necessary, not just in grains, but in the food system as a whole, to help move us closer to where we need to be.
Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you all so much. This has been an incredible conversation. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to be baking with Rachel pretty soon. So I hope you all join us for her live demo. She's doing rye brownies, so I'm pretty excited. But thank you all so much for this conversation. I know we didn't get to every single question, but we wrote down all the questions and we'll be sharing it with the panelists. So hopefully they can stay connected with all of you and maybe answer some questions on their own outside of today. But thank you all, and we'll take a short break now and we'll be back soon with Rachel.